Starting things off at number 10, we have a sound that has been recorded by different people in different countries all over the world. The sound seems to be coming from the sky and can last seconds or minutes, but the one thing they all have in common is just how creepy they are. Take a little listen. What is that? What is going on there? That's a whole lot of nope right there. The noises have been reported every single year since 2008. There are a number of theories ranging from it being a sign of the apocalypse, an alien invasion, or even a government technique to control the weather. Some scientists say that it's being caused by solar flares reacting with the atmosphere or coming from deep within the planet's core. Moving on to number 9 now, we're going out into deep dark space to hear the creepy sounds of Saturn. The sound you're about to hear was recorded by the Cassini spacecraft back in 2002. It came from the planet's magnetic field over the polar regions. The frequency was so high that they had to shift it down a lot so that you can actually hear it. Let's listen. Wow, scientists have explained this sound as natural radio waves passing along the magnetic field lines of Saturn, but yeah, I don't really care if it's explainable, to be honest. It's really creepy. Alright, next up at number 8 now, we have the SpongeBob theme. Now I know what you guys are thinking. How is that scary? You have to be joking. It sounds like this.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? SpongeBob SquarePants!
Okay. But now guys, listen to this. This is exactly the same, but slowed down 800%. I don't know who discovered that, I don't know why they did it, but I wish they didn't. I know a lot of things sound creepier when they're slowed down, but this has to be the biggest one I've heard so far. Ugh. Well guys, that is pretty much as light as we're going to get for this video, I'm afraid, so let's just press on to our number 7 now with the Aztec death whistles. When archaeologists found these small skull-shaped objects in the ancient Aztec temple, they weren't really sure what they were at first. Some said it was a toy or just an ordinary carving. It wasn't until 15 years later that one of them had the thought of blowing into it. It turned out to be a whistle. The noise that came out sounded a lot like a human scream, and some people think it was used before battle or for ceremonies such as human sacrifice. And with that lovely thought in mind, let's take a listen to the death whistle. Creepy stuff. Alright, next up now at number 6, we have the bloop. In 1997, scientists were using deep sea microphones to capture sound off the coast of South America. What they heard though, and what you're about to hear, baffled them. They said it could not have been made by a volcano or an underwater earthquake and was far louder than even the noise a blue whale makes. It was almost inconceivably loud and incredibly mysterious. These days, scientists have put forward the explanation that it's the sound of ice sheets cracking that reverberates throughout the whole ocean, but some people still hold on to the idea that the bloop came from a deep sea creature of unimaginable proportions. I personally don't think so, but mainly because I don't want it to be true. Alright, coming in at number 5 now, we have the castrato. Now during the Middle Ages in Europe, some choir leaders wanted their star male choir boys to keep their high-pitched voices forever and not have them lowered by puberty. They did this by castrating the boy, removing the testicles, which then left them with their high-pitched boy voice forever. They were then known as castrato. Now this practice was thankfully banned by the end of the 19th century, but one surviving recording of a real castrato has survived. This is that recording. This is Cavalier Morisetti, and some say you can even hear the sadness in his voice. Now apparently, some people used to think that was beautiful. That's not the word that I would use. Personally, I'd call it spooky. Yeah, and I hope I never hear that again. Okay, moving on to number 4 now. We have Operation Wandering Soul. During the Vietnam War, the US government learned about the belief of many Vietnamese that their dead must be buried in their homeland or their soul will wander through hell for eternity. In order to help them fight the Viet Cong, they actually made recordings of voices pretending to be dead soldiers trapped in hell, warning their comrades to flee from the war or face the same fate as them. Does that sound terrifying to you? That's because it is. Take a listen. Obviously, I'm not even a Viet Cong soldier, and that makes me want to go home and like huddle into a ball on my bed and cry my little eyes out. Yeah, I'm tough. And now at number 3, we have the oldest surviving recording of a human voice. Even that sentence is pretty creepy. What you're about to hear is a man called Edward Leon Scott recording himself singing using his invention, the phonautograph. It's from 1860. Take a listen. That is 100% nightmare fuel. It's not even the crackling noise or how old it is that makes it creepy for me, it's the song itself. It sounds like a funeral march. It's a cool piece of history, but a very, very creepy piece of history. Okay, moving swiftly on to number 2 now. Things aren't getting any more pleasant as we've got a schizophrenic simulation. What you're about to hear is a recording that is supposed to recreate the voices that people with schizophrenia hear in their heads, whispering and telling them to do all kinds of bad things. That honestly makes me feel so bad for people with schizophrenia, but hopefully it will help bring awareness to that illness. For me, the scariest part was thinking, what if I paused the video, but the voices didn't stop? Okay, finally now at number 1, we have the exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Now this is apparently the sound recording of the exorcism of a German girl called Anneliese Michel, who was supposedly possessed by 6 demons and Catholic priests trying to exorcise them out of her. They ultimately failed and Anneliese died in 1976 after not being able to eat. This was actually the inspiration for the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Now whether or not you believe in this kind of thing, it is undeniably scary. So if you do want to skip it, hit this right up here and it will skip it to the next bit. You can join us at the end. But for those of you who are still with us, let's take a listen. No. Now that video of this recording actually has 37 million views, and I imagine most people just listen to it once and then try and move on with their lives. Scary, scary stuff. Kicking things off at number 10, we have howler monkeys. Just picture yourself for a moment, guys, lying in the dark, alone in the Amazon rainforest. You've heard stories of the howler monkeys who call out in the middle of the night, and as you're lying there in silence, you hear this. This morning when I woke up, I wasn't scared of howler monkeys. Yeah, it's funny how things change. Moving on to number 9, we have the nuclear alarm siren. Now the siren you're about to hear is ready to play all over the world in a whole bunch of different countries. It's a sound that governments will use to tell their people, to tell you guys, that a nuclear attack will be happening within the next few minutes and to try and find shelter before the bomb drops. Of course, the sad reality is that for a lot of people, they probably won't be able to find adequate shelter in time, and this chilling noise will be the last thing they ever hear. Ooh, did they have to make it so scary? They could have just done any noise. Why does it have to be that one? It's just scary. They knew that. Alright, next up at number 8, we have the Max Headroom incident. On the 22nd of November 1987, a man dressed as a television character, Max Headroom, managed to interrupt the broadcast of a TV station to show possibly one of the strangest sights I've ever seen. And it's made extra creepy by the noise. Yeah. That went on for about 90 seconds, and to this day, nobody knows who it was, how they did it, or why they did it. And frankly, I'm kinda happy not knowing. Coming in number 7, we have the weepy voiced killer.
Don't talk, just listen.
Paul Michael Stefani was a serial killer who killed 4 women between 1980 and 1982. He became known as the weepy voice killer because after some of the murders, he would call the police in hysterics and start with, "Don't talk, just listen."
Fire emergency.
Please don't talk, just listen.
He was eventually caught and sentenced to 40 years in prison, but died there in 1998.
I'd rather kill myself to get a laptop. I'll try not to kill anybody else.
Very scary stuff. Alright, coming in at number 6 now, we have the Lost Cosmonaut. During the space race between the Soviet Union and the US, both countries were very secretive about their space missions, and there were countless cover-ups or disasters that were never mentioned to the public. In 1961, 2 Italian brothers were using radio equipment to listen in on one of the Soviet missions, but what they heard chilled them to the bone. It appeared to be the sound of a female cosmonaut in distress as she re-entered the atmosphere. 3 days later, the Soviet news agency said there had been a failed re-entry of a satellite into the atmosphere, but they never acknowledged that this incident ever took place, or that the woman even existed. But as you can tell from those distressing sounds, she definitely did. Moving on to number 5, we have the UVB-76 radio station. Somewhere in Russia, there is a radio station that broadcasts a buzzing tone 25 times a minute, all day, every day, and it was first noticed in the 1970s. Sometimes the buzzer stops and a voice in Russian transmits numbers and codes, but nobody has figured out exactly what's going on. Now I could show you guys many audio clips over the past 40 years, but one really creepy one that stuck with me is where a woman's scream can be heard underneath the never-ending buzzer. Next up at number 4, we have Area 51, the frantic caller. In 1997, Art Bell received a phone call on his radio station from a distressed man who claimed he worked at the top secret Area 51 site, where many UFO stories originate from.
They are not what they claim to be.
Now what you're about to hear is some of his call before the entire radio station was mysteriously shut down mid-call.
The few that are left will be more easily controllable.
In some way, something knocked us off the air and we're on a backup system now.
Real? Maybe. I think that guy sounds legitimately terrified for his life, and why did the radio station get just shut down right after that? I don't know, but it's scary for sure. Alright, moving on to number 3, we have the WKCR incident. In 1995, someone hijacked the WKCR radio station in New York. At first, the song walked, then otherworldly sounds started, and eventually a female voice began quickly reading out the names of people who had died during the 1980s. Those names included the likes of Barry Valentino, who was killed in a terrorist attack flying over Scotland, and Frank Oppenheimer, known as the father of the atomic bomb. Now some people have doubted its authenticity, but either way, it's a creepy sound nonetheless. Coming in at number 2, we have the Night Stalker. This is the story of a rapist and murderer in East Sacramento during the 1970s and 1980s who would call up the homes of his next victims and leave answer phone messages telling them he's going to kill them next. Now, if this clip we're about to play you is scary to hear, imagine if you were the actual next victim. And coming in at number 1, when Hurricane Ike hit Cuba and Texas in 2008, it killed almost 200 people and did $37.5 billion worth of damage. There was an evacuation order on Galveston Island off the coast of Texas. One weather reporter chose to stay behind though and barricaded himself in his hotel. He recorded the sound you're about to hear as Hurricane Ike passed right over him. Now, I don't know why it sounds like someone opened the gates of hell, but I don't want to hear it anymore. Now at number 10 with the Swedish Rhapsody. Now, in one of our previous videos we talked a little bit about number stations. They are places that send out very creepy signals. They seem to come from just secret locations that are thought to be used as communication posts between spies and their governments. Well, I'm not sure if they're also required to be very creepy, because they usually are. And this one, called the Swedish Rhapsody, was one of the creepiest. Nobody has ever been able to decode its message. It features a small girl speaking in German and some music from your childhood nightmares. I don't know what the secret message was there, but I'm not going to keep listening to find out. Moving on to number 9 now, we have the sound of Jupiter. When NASA's Voyager craft visited Jupiter for the first time ever in 1979, it studied its powerful magnetosphere, whose magnetic effect is about 4,000 times stronger than Earth. Now, Voyager got very close up and picked up the signals of this. NASA then turned that signal into sound. Many people say that what you're about to hear is very haunting, and that it sounds like celestial voices in deep space. Now, that noise is apparently made by magnetically charged particles being blasted out into space, so at least I can tick Space Ghost off my list of scary things. Next up at number 8 we have the Intruder. Do ghosts and paranormal things freak you out, guys? What about scary house intruders in the middle of the night? Well, this next clip could really be either of those. A woman called Jenny posted to Reddit a recording from a sleeping app she was using to see how restless her sleep was and hopefully improve it. Usually she only heard the occasional cough or shuffle, but one night it recorded this, a strange clicking sound which woke Jenny up. You hear her asking, "What are you doing?" A man's voice then clearly replies saying nothing. Then the clicking continues and we hear him mutter something else towards the end of the clip. See what you guys think.
What are you doing? Okay.
One Reddit user said this was the sound of a home intruder who was actually in Jenny's room and going through her stuff, and that she woke up and she was like half asleep, and then he said, "I'm not doing anything." That is creepy. Alright, moving on to number 7 now, we have the Quacker. Silly name, but bear with me, guys. From the 1960s to the 1980s, at the height of the Cold War, submarines in oceans around the world started to pick up a very strange sound deep in the ocean. The Russian crews who first heard it had no idea what it was. It seemed to be coming from a very fast moving underwater craft or animal that would circle the submarines at speeds of up to 200 kilometers an hour. That's way faster than any man-made vessel. Whatever it was, the Russians called them quackers, and it freaked them out big time. By the end of the 80s, the mysterious sound had mysteriously disappeared altogether. Now, scientists say it came from minke whales, but some people still maintain it was maybe secret government technology, undiscovered ocean creatures, or even aliens. Next up at number 6 now, we have the chimpanzee 911 call. In 2009, police in Connecticut received a phone call from Sandra Herold, the owner of Travis the chimpanzee, who she'd had for about 14 years. In all that time, Travis seemed very sociable and non-violent, but on this day one of Sandra's friends had come to visit. She was holding one of Travis's favourite toys in her hand, and when he saw that, he attacked her. Travis ripped her hands off. He ripped her eyes out and all of her face off and her jaw too. Sandra made this desperate call as she watched her friend getting torn to pieces, and it is truly disturbing.
Daddy ripped her apart.
He ripped what apart? Her face?
Everything. Please hurry. Please hurry.
Moving on to number 5, we have the Jonestown Massacre. Now, Jonestown was a religious cult that was set up by Reverend Jim Jones in Guyana in 1974. Hundreds of American cult members made the journey with him to live there over the next few years. He wanted to set up this sort of communist haven, far away from any interfering governments. By 1978, Jim Jones's mental health had begun to deteriorate, and his paranoia that the US government was trying to stop what they were doing led to a very terrible decision. He ordered all of his followers to meet in the center of Jamestown, at which point he commanded them to drink poison juice, and they did. 918 of them died that day, including 287 children who were forced to drink this. Jim Jones actually recorded something called the death tape, an audio recording of the event as his followers died around him. This is a chilling segment from that tape. Skip ahead now if you don't want to hear this. It's pretty disturbing.
We didn't commit suicide, we committed an act of revolutionary suicide protesting the conditions of an inhumane world.
Okay, next up at number 4 we have The Murder Call. The story goes with this one that an old woman called Ruth Price lived alone and often called police saying that she thought someone was watching her. Eventually, the police got a little bit fed up with this and they stopped taking her paranoia seriously until one day this call came through.
Okay, where is he now, ma'am? I have no idea.
Apparently, after the line went dead, Ruth was killed by the attacker. Now, some people say this call was used in police training afterwards as an example of why the operator should always get the caller's information before anything bad happens. But other people still doubt its authenticity. What do you guys think? Coming at number 3 now, we have the Ghost Song. The story behind this one is that it was written by a musician who was trying to find the sound of pure evil, suffering, and death. He finally created this song after a lot of work, simply called The Ghost Song. However, just 1 week after its completion, it seemed to drive him mad and he apparently killed himself. This is a segment of that song. Years later, people said this was actually written by a man called David Byrne, who was alive and well. For some people, that's a bit more comforting, but for others, even if that is true, it doesn't make this song any less scary. People still report having the strangest feeling wash over them when they hear it. Moving on to number 2 now, we have Julia. Now, you guys might remember in our part 1 video, we talked about the bloop, a strange sort of underwater sound that some people said came from a gigantic underwater creature. Well, a similar thing happened on March 1st, 1999. When a large network of hydrophones called the Eastern Equatorial Pacific Array picked up another strange sound. Now, theorists say this is all proof of a monumentally huge creature or creatures lurking in the ocean depths. Take a listen. One explanation for that is that it's the sound of an Antarctic iceberg scraping on the ocean floor, but to this day opinion is divided, leaving many people still picturing a giant ocean beast. And finally, at the number 1 spot we have Kevin Cosgrove's 9/11 call. On September the 11th, 2001, Kevin Cosgrove, a 45-year-old businessman, was in the South Tower at the World Trade Center in New York. He was trapped above the impact zone of the plane that day and couldn't get any further down because of the flames and smoke. Kevin climbed to the 105th floor. He called some of his family, he called his friends, and he called his brother, but the next call he made to the police is the one that sends chills down people's spines. This call you're about to hear captures the last moments of his life as the South Tower started to collapse around him. This may very well be disturbing to some of you guys. Here it is.
We're looking at financial center. 3 of us, 2 broken windows. Oh God!
Starting us off, in at number 10, we have a sound that had a whole city complain about it, but no one can explain what this sound was.
Police have been inundated with 911 calls.
Are you calling about loud music?
So this scary, mysterious sound seemed to be coming from a river located in New Jersey. Late at night, while most residents are fast asleep, this loud noise happened. Police have been called many times about all these noise complaints, but there was just nothing that they can do about it. There was nothing they could do about the airy noises that were being made. If this was me, I would for sure skip on the complaining part and move right along into the moving out part, move to another city. I would get myself away from this noise so damn fast. I mean, this noise was created by nobody, possibly created by aliens or something. Maybe this is a warning sign to get out. At number 9, I wouldn't move too quickly to the UK, where this strange trumpet noise was heard coming from the sky.
Huh? The f is it? It's coming from the sky.
So this guy heard this noise from the sky and decided to film it. Because that's what we do in 2019. It was kind of hard to listen to the noise while this guy was inside, but it gets really loud and very scary when the guy went outside to film. Is this real life right now? I would honestly think the world is ending, or is coming to an end very, very soon. Or something unbelievable was going to happen. Maybe alien invasion, or some creatures that were about to make contact with us here on Earth. Here's another audio of the same sound, but in a different location. These workers were in a forest when they heard the trumpet-like sound. I mean, this gets quite loud. Moving into number 8, we have the terrifying and loud sounds from Hurricane Ike. This was the devastating hurricane that hit North America back in 2008. This was a Category 4 major hurricane that caused $38 billion worth in damages, which made this hurricane the 6th costliest hurricane in the United States and the costliest in Cuban history. So the audio I'm about to share with you guys was filmed on the 11th floor of a resort hotel. Listen to this. I mean, this is what nightmares are made of. For sure, this can be used for a scene of a horror movie, if it wasn't already used. See, I told you guys in a previous video, wind is very scary. Wind is one of my biggest fears. Let me know what is your biggest fear in the comment section below. Mine is wind. Alright, so now that we all know that I'm afraid of wind, let's move on to scary screams in at number 7. In this next clip that I'm about to show you guys, you'll hear some diabolic laughter and screeching. This was recorded late at night on a reserve, and I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't stick around long enough to capture the sound on camera. Well, let's have a listen to what this person was able to capture instead of running away. What do you guys think is making this sound? At first, I thought it was some crazy person terrorizing the city, terrorizing the streets. Like, it honestly sounds like the Purge or something is about to go down. Or maybe an SCP broke out of containment. All I know is I would be inside of my car, driving as fast as I can to the next state over. Now at number 6, we have a scary sound from the ocean. I already think that the ocean is a scary place. I mean, 95% of the world's ocean is left unexplored. So who knows what is lurking at the bottom of it? It's pretty dark and it's probably really cold down there. We can have a new killer species living down there, and we would have no idea. With that in mind, let's listen to a creepy audio from the ocean. Oh, and just a warning, if you're home alone right now and you get scared pretty easily, I'd probably plug my ears for this clip because it's actually really terrifying. This audio was recorded off the coast of Antarctica, and it made national news. Some people think that this is a sound from an iceberg scraping the ocean floor. Others think it's a whale, but my favorite theory, this could be the sound of Cthulhu waking up from his beauty sleep. But whatever the heck it is, hopefully not Cthulhu, this sound is a great reminder that the ocean is a big mysterious place that requires more exploration. But if it was up to me, I would leave that stuff, unexplored. Let's take this list to outer space, and at number 5. Have you guys ever heard what Saturn sounds like? No? Well, buckle up, because you're in for a treat. This video is giving me some serious PTSD. Why are wind sounds so freaking scary? Am I the only one here? This audio was taken from a radio emissions from Saturn, and it was converted so that humans can hear it. I think we'd be better off not hearing this sound. I imagine this is what hell would sound like. So yeah, remind me to never ever take a trip to Saturn, because I don't think I'd be able to live with hearing this sound every single day. So you know what? Saturn, it's just not for me. Next up, number 4, we have The Wandering Soul. This is actually an audio mix that the US military used during the Vietnam War. This audio was used against the enemy to scare them into submission. This would for sure submit me. You tell me if this would work on you guys. I just find this audio to be extremely annoying. If I heard this as an American soldier, I'd want to go home too. But when you really think about it, this audio is extremely terrifying, because just imagine being a Vietnamese soldier, patrolling through the jungle, and it's pitch black, and then you hear this sound off in the distance. I would be running. Moving up this list, and at number 3, we have schizophrenia. This next audio clip is a representation of what a person with schizophrenia would hear in their mind. It's a good way for others to try and, get a better understanding of what they're experiencing. But prepare yourselves, it isn't easy to listen to. Listen to this.
So stupid. Look at you. No, you can't. Stupid. Poison the car. Jump now. Jump in front of the car. Go on. Do it.
I couldn't even listen to the entire recording because it made me too anxious. I couldn't imagine having these voices in my head 24/7. You know what? I'm scared, and I only listened to like 20 seconds of it. Number 2. What do you guys think that sounded like? Well, let me know in the comment section below. Let's hear it one more time. I think this sound should have its own creepypasta. I mean, this is the first known recording of a human voice. The original recording dates back to 1860, and all I have to say is that I'm super grateful for autotune, but all jokes aside, this is pretty amazing if you think about that there's something about this recording that gives me chills. So let's try and forget about this one, forget about this creepy voice, and let's move on. Finally, number 1 spot, we have a very loud sound that came from the skies in Terrace or British Columbia, which is in Canada. What you're about to hear was heard by thousands of confused people around 7 in the morning. And I warn you guys, it's kind of loud and it's hella annoying. Maybe the heavens are opening up and that's the noise it makes. I'm not sure why God is making so much noise 7 in the morning, but that must be a pretty terrifying thing to wake up to. Well, Kimberly Wookie was the one that uploaded this clip onto YouTube, and it has over 6.5 million views at the time of this recording. And she said in the description, "This is not fake or a hoax. What I recorded is what I woke up to this morning. The original files is on my camcorder, which can be examined for authenticity." She also went on to say this wasn't the first time she heard these sounds. The first time she heard it was in June of that year at 9 or 9:30 in the morning. I think the Men in Black, Ed or Lorraine Warren, maybe Ghostbusters, Sam and Dean Winchester, or even a priest should be investigating all of these sounds.